Good Friday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Alex Carter with you here in the Fox 54 Digital Weather Center. Thank you for joining us tonight for another edition of Weather Aware Live. Obviously here talking all things snowstorm because we are expecting a pretty big snow here in the CSRA, and that's going to start up tomorrow, and it's going to work its way all through the day Saturday. Still going to have some lingering impacts into Sunday as well. So lots to get to in this forecast. If you're joining us, good evening. And again, let us know where you're listening from. This is also a Q&A, so we're going to give you a forecast brief, kind of what's ahead through the weekend, and then we want you to ask away and let us know what your questions are for the weekend as we approach. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here with a few of these things. And again, the weekend forecast, simply put, a tale of two halves when it comes to precipitation, but the cold is going to be a big impact as well. Here's Saturday and Sunday, and you see there, anywhere from, say, 32 degrees on Saturday. That's going to be the high temperature. That's going to be the high on Saturday. And then Sunday, we have a very low chance of some early morning snow around 1 to 2 a.m., but most of us are just going to be sunny and dry, but it is also going to be very frigid. And with those cold temperatures, again, this snow is going to accumulate. It is definitely going to accumulate this time around, and I think this is one of the more memorable setups here in recent memory. Let's see. Amy Duckett asking about that in-house model, and let's go ahead and show you kind of what we're looking at with the in-house. I'm comparing that with our HRRR runs because they're eerily similar. I mean, you look at these and they're spitting images of each other. I'm going to take myself off the screen so you can see that a little better. Notice the HRRR and both the in-house. I mean, those amounts are within half an inch to an inch of each other from top to bottom. That is impressive. And the in-house models continue to show you a trend of indicating north of I-20 and the further east into South Carolina you go. Those are going to be the highest snowfall totals with this particular event. And again, we are going to see banding with this system. So if you're wondering, banding is where we'll show you this on the local futurecast look. Some areas are going to see heavier bands of snow. Others could see some very light snow at times. And those differences maybe are just a few miles down the road where some of us could see 4 inches of snow and others could see 2. It all depends on where the bands really begin to set up. So that's kind of a look at our in-house modeling. But here's the overall broad look at the forecast. Again, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of snow is the general range that we are expecting here in the CSRA. 4 to 5 inches is possible north of I-20 and further into South Carolina. And then again, single-digit wind chills are on the way Sunday morning. We're expecting impacts to pipes on Sunday morning, even some impacts to pipes on Monday morning. I've got multiple messages over the past week talking about bursted pipes that have happened. And again, this is a real thing that happens when it gets this level of cold in the CSRA. On top of that, we are going to get some slick roadways and travel is going to go downhill. And we're going to be talking about just how much travel could be hindered at different points of the weekend. So that's something else that's coming up as we head into this Weather Aware Live here. So if you're just joining us, good evening. We're tracking all things winter weather. And let's go ahead and show you the winter storm warning first. This is in effect for the entire CSRA. And this goes until 8 p.m. Saturday night, 1 p.m. Sunday, or 1 a.m. Sunday morning. We're expecting that winter storm to continue to be pretty disruptive all through the day Saturday, okay? And it's all caused by this upper level low. So this upper level low really causing a problem for much of the East Coast states. It starts out as this big dip in the jet stream, and then from there it just gets lower and lower, and that low is just going to curl across our region. So this setup is just about picture perfect for what you would expect for a big snow here. You've got the coastal low in place. You've got the Arctic air in place, and they're meeting just at the perfect time. And seeing this is something that we studied in a textbook. And truly, for a deep south snow, this is how you win the lottery right here. And so I would be thoroughly surprised if the snow didn't live up to the billing tomorrow, just based on the overall setup, the model data, and just what we know with how these events have worked in the past. This setup reminds you maybe of 2010, the National Weather Service in Columbia comparing this event to 2010 in many cases, where we did see about 4 inches of snow in a lot of spots. Now, here's our snowfall forecast here from Fox 54's weather team. Again, anywhere along and north of I-20 and the further east into South Carolina, these are going to be the highest totals with this particular event. Now, the further south and west you go, the lower those totals are. Swainsboro, Millen, Louisville, Waynesboro, Midville, anywhere from, say, about a half an inch to 2 inches is possible. But then the closer you get to the metro, the higher likelihood of seeing 2+ inches of snow. And again, I think Edgefield, Aiken, and McCormick counties will be the winners of the snowfall lottery this time. You guys are going to see a lot of snow. Some isolated drifts in these areas could easily get up to about 6 inches. And that's just unbelievable for here in the Deep South. Pretty remarkable. I'm going to circle an area that I think could easily win out. It's going to be right in here. So communities like Pleasant Lane, Trenton, Johnston, Monetta, Ridge Spring, Ward, South Carolina, on up into Saluda County, Batesburg, Leesville. You go into Richland, Lexington counties. Those are really going to start to pile up too. The Columbia Metro, they might not be getting out of the woods with snow when it comes to the accumulations and the impacts until Tuesday of next week, because they're going to see a noticeably higher snowfall than we are, but we're still getting something that's impactful and something that's going to be fun to see. I know a lot of us have been waiting on this. This could be the best snowfall chance in about 10 years around here. I kid you not. So that's kind of what we're looking at, and we're excited to cover it, and we're excited to show you what transpires. And now I want to get to the travel impacts timeline for this, and I'm going to take myself fully off so you can get that full view. So this starts up Saturday morning, so tomorrow. The snow's going to start to move in. By the late morning hours, the roads are going to become slick. And again, I don't think it's going to be something where everybody starts to see travel problems around 9, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. The road temperatures are going to have to cool down a little bit. And as they get to freezing, once they do, everything's going to stick. And I think that's going to happen by tomorrow or Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. So accumulations will continue to grow, and the snow gets heavier in the afternoon and evening. So the roads will become hazardous for travel, and there's really not much point in being outside trying to get on them because the roads will start to go downhill at that point. The worst window for driving looks to be anywhere from Saturday afternoon all the way through Sunday morning, because that's the brunt of the accumulation and the brunt of the refreeze. Anything that falls, especially Saturday night, temperatures are going to be down in the low 20s. It is going to stick on contact, and it's going to quickly pile up. The wind chill values Saturday afternoon are even going to be at around, I'd give or say, take 15, 16 degrees. That is not pleasant, y'all. I think we all know that here in the Deep South. And then Sunday afternoon and Monday morning, that's when the roads will be not quite as hazardous. Sunday, you got to think in the second half of the day, the sun's out, we're going to be in the upper 30s. And not all the snow is going to melt, but the roads are going to improve some. So it is going to be a touch-and-go thing. I don't want you to think as soon as 1 o'clock hits with the snap of a finger Sunday afternoon, everything's fine. It's got to melt first. The roads are going to be slick still, but they're not going to be as slick. And we're going to see some of that, the roads melting into a little bit of a slush. And then once we get to Monday morning and Sunday night even, we're still going to see a refreeze and some areas of black ice out there. So if you're just joining us, good evening. And there we go. Got some new comments here, monitoring those. James, you're right. Just a waiting game now. And, you know, the waiting game is looking for the big snow that James is one of our best weather photographers here in the CSRA. He is fantastic at what he does. James, now you specialize in lightning, but can you do the snow? I have no doubt you can. I'm looking forward to what you produce tomorrow, and hopefully we can share it here on Fox 54. But James does a great job with that. And, you know, many of you looking for that big snow, you're looking for that big weather event. This one, thankfully, it's kind of like when you see a spring day in the low 80s with no thunderstorms. We call it worry-free warmth. This is worry-free winter right here. You get the snow, but without the heavy risk of power outages and downed trees and all the disruptive impacts that an ice storm can bring. That's why we were so concerned last weekend, is because ice storms have a potentially high ceiling of impact. With the snow, it's more just you watch it, enjoy, play in it. The only hazard we got to watch out for truly is just making sure you're not overexposed to this cold weather, because especially considering we're not used to it. You know, if you're up from north in Nebraska or something like that, that's where we could see, you know, maybe you're used to it a little bit more. Some of that cold weather, we're not used to it here in the Deep South. So, again, just got to make sure to be careful, take some breaks in the heat, all that good stuff, and you'll be good to go with this event. Let's see, Misty in Ward. Misty, I tell you, Ward, South Carolina, hot spot for the snow tomorrow. It is really going to pile up in your area. You're right there near Saluda, Edgefield, Batesburg, Leesville, all those areas, and you're going to be right there in the thick of the action, I think. Jennifer for Warrenville, South Carolina, you're in a really good spot. You're going to be in the valley there, and that's a spot where we're eyeing totals up to 3+ potentially. So, the snow's going to start around 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's not going to stop until, at the earliest, 9 to 10 o'clock tomorrow night. So you get about a 12, 15-hour window where all this is coming together. So looking forward to a good snow in your area. Lisa, I don't think road impacts are going to last too much into Tuesday. In the spots that we're talking about that get 3+, which is north of I-20, South Carolina counties, we could have some lingering, very isolated slick spots. But highs will climb into the upper 40s on Monday, and with sunshine, too, at that. So that should melt anything that we have away for the most part. Candy, thankful no blizzards like Wyoming. You don't even have to travel to Wyoming, Candy. You can just go up to North Carolina. Talking about double-digit snow in those areas, double digits. Even on the South Carolina-North Carolina border. What a travel mess for Charlotte. Monday, the city will be shut down, I think. It's going to take until Tuesday into Wednesday for them to slowly get back to normal around there. Kathy says, I'd rather have snow than freezing rain. Me and you both, every day of the week. Ice is the disruptive stuff. This is not 2014. This is more of a friendly snow. I think 2010 would be a good comparison for that. Yep, it did take the red track, and if you're wondering what the red track is, it's this. We had 3 tracks up earlier in the week, and we were talking about which ones are we going to eliminate because we don't know yet. And the winter impacts, see them here. There is the green track, which means no impacts, and then the yellow, which was somewhere in the middle. And this low is going to hug the coastline. It is going to be right there at it. And so what do we get? We get the winter impacts, and that's expected for tomorrow. That's for sure. Let's see, Mary, you're right on the fringe. I think you can see up to about 2 inches of snow down there in Avra, Georgia, right on the border of Glasscock and Jefferson County, might I add, for those wondering. And so I think some pretty impactful snowfall for much of the area tomorrow. If you're in Avra, you're a little bit further west, but I still think you're going to get in on the thick of the action tomorrow. Let's see. Any more questions? Roro Cooper, thanks for commenting. That's a good question because Barnwell County could be right on the fringe, and this is what we're talking about with some of these bandings or snow bands, if you will. Notice I'm gonna measure this out. Barnwell to Aiken, it's about 17 miles, and you could have an inch or two difference in a couple places of the county, right? Snow is going to come in bands tomorrow, and a good illustration of this is going to be on the Futurecast look. So this is tomorrow morning, and we're just going to show you the illustration of the bands. There we go. And I'm going to – it's where we can see it a little bit better. Okay, perfect example right here. So I'm going to point to this. And here we go. I'm going to point to this, and I'm going to do a pause point here. So notice this area here, and this is right around Aiken County, closing in on Wagner and Sally, down towards Williston and Blackville and Barnwell County. You see a thin band of darker blue. And then there's a light band here. This is at 8:30 tomorrow night. Notice the darker blues in Millen. Some bands are going to be heavier than others. So areas maybe 5 miles down the street from you could see 2 inches more snow over the course of this entire event than you could. Or you could see 2 more inches of snow than maybe 5 miles down the street from your neighbors. That's the difference in these snow bands. And once it becomes more of these lines of snow, some of them will be more intense than others. So overall, we're talking about general trends. We're not going to be able to see where the heaviest bands set up until tomorrow afternoon, truly. So looking forward through Sunday, to answer your question, Roro, Barnwell has a high chance of seeing anywhere from 3 inches and above of snowfall. That is very possible for you guys on the South Carolina side of the Savannah River. Notice Bamberg could see maybe a little bit more than you. Aiken could. You could fall in one of the lower pockets. It all depends on that banding. And once that banding sets up, we'll have a really good idea where it's all going to take place. But the general trend is you're going to see a pretty good chunk of snow in Barnwell. Jeannie, thanks for commenting. Hello from Clarksville near Pollard's Corner. You're north of I-20, and you're north in northern Columbia County. That sets you up for a pretty big snow event potentially tomorrow, Jeannie. So hopefully that gives you what you need. I mean, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches is very much on the table. North side of Aiken, I think 3 to 4 inches could be very possible for you, Sherry. Thanks for asking that question. Anywhere in South Carolina is going to have that highest opportunity, and anywhere north of I-20 too. I think those are the hot spots for this event, like we've been talking about. And if you're wondering when to get out, I've got several messages, and thank you guys for trusting us with that, by the way, of just asking, well, how is this going to impact my morning tomorrow? Can we go to church service Sunday morning? Can we get out and about Sunday afternoon? And this is the best way that we can put it. This is kind of our travel impacts timeline from Saturday morning all the way through Monday morning. Snow begins to accumulate. Roads get slick by late morning, and that's going to be the start of this entire event. I think tomorrow, if there was a window to get out and about and do some last-minute things before you get kind of entrapped in, I think it's going to be around 7 to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And past then, conditions will go downhill. Sunday morning into Sunday afternoon. Sunday morning is a no-go. Nobody needs to be out on the roads in that. And if you have to be, make sure to be extra careful, because where the roads pile up, there is going to be some iced over roads, and it's going to be slick. It will be a slippery drive. Sunday afternoon, the sun in the upper 30s are going to start to melt things. And again, like we said, especially in the higher totals, 4 to 5 inches, not all that's going to melt just in the upper 30s and in a 5-hour window in the afternoon. It's just not going to happen. So it's going to refreeze over. It's going to turn into some black ice. And black ice, that'll be a concern for Monday morning as well. Good evening, Mary. Thanks for joining us tonight. And if you're just tuning in, good evening. Another edition of Weather Aware Live here. And we are talking all things snow, answering your questions as well, and gearing up for what's going to be a pretty noticeable snow event. Simon Austin, I don't think there's going to be any thunder snow in these bands. The air is too dry, Simon. The air is too dry for any of that lightning or any of those charges to really start to stir up. Let's see. Lisa Duckett, great question. She says, for Aiken County, what time do you need to be at the place that we're going to stay for the duration? I would say by no later than 11 a.m. Tomorrow morning. I would say 11 a.m. because the snow's going to start around 8 to 9. It's going to take maybe a couple seconds for road temperatures to go down, and then at that point, accumulations on the roads will start to happen. So I would say 11 o'clock. Courtney, thank you for that question, because that's something we're also talking about. This goes hand in hand, Courtney. If you caught the convo earlier about the snow bands, this has a little bit to do with that. So dry slots. The dry slots, and there we go. Okay, we're back. But the dry slots, it's an interesting setup here. And let me show you this. In the tropics, if you ever hear us talking about tropical systems, we talk about how dry air, when it enters the middle of the storm, that is what's going to help it weaken. Dry air limits hurricanes, but it also limits any low-pressure system that forms, including severe weather systems and winter weather systems. So you'll see here is that low's moving across the coast. There's not much dry air intruding into this thing. We've got a lot of low-level moisture at play. And what's helping limit the dry slots is just that surge of onshore moisture coming in. And so there's not a lot of dry air that's going to settle in here. And as a result, I mean, this snow sets up perfectly right over us. And if the dry air were to enter in, which we don't see, because if you see that low-level circulation, not much is impeding on that. If you see a lot of vacant clouds, which we don't see a lot of vacancy around the low, that's how you know we're not going to see a lot of dry slots. And right now, the latest models are backing off that dry slot trend, which, if you love snow, that's a good thing. But I think at the end, the dry air is going to start to filter in. I think once we get into the evening hours, the dry air is going to filter in. And so there's going to be a difference between some heavy bands and some shallow bands. That's what dry slots do. It's going to make some bands heavier to the left of it, and then it's going to make some to the right of it perhaps a lot lighter. So dry slots will still be there. Some isolated lower amounts still are possible, but the overall trend is we're banking on a pretty good snow around here, and I think anywhere from 2 to 4 inches is a pretty good possibility wherever you're at in the CSRA. And so that's kind of the future cast through about 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and that's more of the regional view, just showing you the overall setup, that low hugging the coast. I mean, just by a matter of miles there. And so if you're just watching us tonight, we do Weather Aware Live, not just on the active weather days. We do it on more so Tuesdays and Thursdays at about 7:30. And this is where we just talk about the forecast. And lately, we've had a lot to talk about in the forecast. Not so much in December when it was just warm and mostly dry. But Weather Aware Live, you can catch this Tuesdays and Thursdays most of the time, or just whenever the weather's active. And so we always encourage you, feel free to join in, ask those questions, and get what you need out of it. And, we need some rainfall. I think once we get past this event, the winter weather should be calming down as the northern jet stream starts to lift back further north later next month. And then we start to get to, can we get some rain? Because we're in an extreme to severe drought in many parts of the area, and that'll take over as the big storyline, if you will, moving forward into next week. But right now, all eyes on the snowfall. And let's see. And I think that's the thing, right? This is a non-worry weather event. If you just stay off the roads, exercise caution, take care of yourself, it's actually fun to enjoy. Let's see. This is a good comment here. Jenny Glisson, thank you for commenting. She says, thank you for keeping us updated. Hope you are wrong and we get a foot of snow instead of just inches. We appreciate that. And, if I'm wrong, I'll gladly eat crow, just like we were talking about last week, right? The ice storm did not perform. Thankfully, that was the case. But again, we always feel bad when maybe those ice totals don't necessarily go how we planned them. It was a matter of miles with last week's forecast, a very difficult one at that. Mother Nature has a way of being humbling each and every time. And it could be with this one, too. Matthew, yep, you're right. It's been way too long since we got excited about a decent snowfall. It's time to get excited. I think the data's there, the setup's there. I think it supports it, and I think a good snowfall is coming in. And tomorrow morning you'll be able to, if you are a late sleeper, you wake up and probably see flakes floating around and maybe even coating the yard a little bit. So looking pretty good for this weekend, and we're all going to be snowed in. I think by the end of this, we're going to have cabin fever. I think that's a safe bet, right? I think it's a safe bet. Tell me what your snowfall snacks are, what your go-to for the weekend. Is it chili? What's for dessert? Let us know what's going on out there. Simon, with how dry this is, not really. If it were a wet snow, that could help somewhat, but it's not going to be that helpful, Simon, for when it comes to helping out a drought. Let's see. A couple good questions here. So I'm going to start with Summer. Summer Barnes asking, what are the pros and cons of a dry snow? A dry snow, this might not be what you want to hear, so bear with us. A dry snow is not the best for a snowman. I'll compare it to this. Think of a dry snow and a wet snow. A wet snow is like a snow cone in the summer, and then you've got cotton candy as the dry snow. A dry snow is more fluffy, and it's a little bit more poofier, if you will, and it's just going to accumulate faster. When you get more of a wet snow, it's like a snow cone. It's still, you could form it into a snowball, like a snow cone. Not that you would want to do this, but you would take it and you could form it into a snowball and actually throw it. With a cotton candy, it's airy, and so it's not going to be able, a snowball fighting fluffy snow is not very efficient. I'll put it like that. I've been in both in North Alabama, so I've seen that and kind of, but there's not much, there's some advantages to a fluffy snow. It's going to be more aesthetic across the landscape. It'll look really good. I mean, tomorrow is going to look like a winter wonderland in many spots. So take those pictures and send them in, too, to enews@wfxg.com. We'd love to share them on Fox 54 through the day on our Sunday evening newscast, too. And good evening. Soup and cornbread tomorrow. That sounds good. A taco soup with some Mexican cornbread. That you just can't beat that on a cold day. That's just my personal favorite. Might have to whip that up tomorrow and bring it into work. We'll have to see about that. Let's see. And I'm just going to leave these totals up. This is the best way for you to kind of get that data as we're going along. And Jessica, Good question there. Will the roads be okay to travel on Monday morning? Yes, I do think the roads will start to be much better, but you still got to be careful. I mean, we're talking 10 to 2 at the wheel, slow going. We're still going to have black ice, and I think in Edgefield, Aiken, McCormick counties, we could still have some travel issues Monday morning. And, if you're asking maybe about school delays and you're asking, and yes, Amelia, 2 to 3 inches for Martinez looks pretty likely at this point. If you're asking about school delays and things like that, I do think that we could have some delayed starts Monday. I think that's a possibility, considering the black ice. It all depends on how much we see, which is something we're really going to get a glimpse of in real-time data. If we see those snowfall totals really drifting south, then school and work and those daily life things starting next week could be impacted. So just remains to be seen, but I do think some delayed starts and maybe some road problems are possible on Monday morning, but they won't be as widespread as what they are on Sunday. So I'm going to go ahead and swap this up here, getting back to our other page and making sure I'm not missing any of your comments there as well. There we go. We're going to start viewing that. Those should start popping up. All right, Lynn Morris, you're in Hepzibah. You're going to get a pretty good snow there. A snow angel is a must-do. I think snow angels are a good possibility for enough snow for that, Lynn. So I hope you're going to enjoy that. Tara and Evans. Tara, thanks for joining us tonight for one of Fox 54's very own. I think Evans has a good shot at seeing anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of snow. So I think that's a really big possibility for us. Let's see, we're getting some of these comments kind of mixed in, a little bit of back and forth there. And let's see, Adam, Springfield, South Carolina, in Orangeburg County. Adam, if you're still tuned in, you're going to get a lot of snow. Orangeburg County, the further into South Carolina you go, the deeper it gets. 4 to 5 inches, very possible in Orangeburg County. Let's see here. Downtown Augusta, I think I think up to 3 inches is very possible in downtown, Jeff. Hopefully that helps you out. It's going to be a good snow. Sugar Mountain. Wow, okay, Janet. Yep, doesn't look too good this weekend. Yeah, I mean, if you're skiing, that's a snow. Yeah, I mean, snow is going to be a big possibility up in those directions. That's going to be a big snow event up there. Let's see. Hello from Thompson. Thank you for that. Appreciate that comment. And let's see. Warrenton, Georgia, ready for some snow, Paige. Good to hear from you. Good evening. I think, Paige, you could see up to 2 to 3 inches of snow in Warren County, maybe isolated higher amounts, especially if you're north of I-20 there, right along I-20. I think that will be the biggest area for the snow in Warren County. So let's go back here, most recent. See, travel in Edgefield and Aiken Sunday night. I do think that we're going to see some slick spots. Edgefield and Aiken are primed to get most of the snowfall. And when you look at our map here, you see how that's the case. 3 to 5 inches, you're only looking at about a 5-hour window where we could see above freezing temperatures. That's not going to be enough to melt all of it. So I do think Sunday night there's going to be some slick spots on the roads. Got to be extra careful on Sunday evening, that's for sure. Daniel, good question. Thank you for that. What time do you think Graniteville sees snow and how much? Graniteville, I think this is going to start up around, say, 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's really going to begin to accumulate in the late morning hours and early afternoon. I think you could see as much as about up to 4 inches of snow in Graniteville if everything goes just right. Now, remember, your neighbor, maybe 5 miles down the road, could see 4 inches, and you might see 2.5 to 3. All depends on where the heaviest bands ends up setting up. And if you're looking for more snow, hopefully that's right over you and your place. Richmond County, I think, sees mostly 2 to 3 inches in Richmond County. Isolated amounts that are higher can't be ruled out. 2 to 3 looks to be that best scenario for you guys in Richmond County. It'll start up around, say, 9 in the morning, really begin to accumulate on the roads by the lunch hour and early afternoon. So we're going to leave this up for just a moment and let you guys look at that, these snowfall totals, and then we're going to go over Futurecast for just a moment as well here in just a second. All right, so if you're just joining us tonight, good evening. Weather Aware Live. We've been tracking this snow event. What's been a very active jet stream pattern, that north jet stream, the polar branch of it taking over, and 3 weekends in a row, some possibilities for winter weather. This one is going to be the most fruitful in terms of the outcome. We will see impacts area-wide with this particular event. This is not like 2 weekends ago where it's like, okay, maybe it'll accumulate in the metro, and the max we could see is up to 1 to 2 inches. I think this is a much more noticeable snowfall event, and it could be the most memorable snow in recent memory around here. So going over these questions, I thank you guys for sending these in. Let's see. Beach Island. Andrea, good evening. I think Beach Island is going to see anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 inches. I think you're right on that fringe zone of where we could get some drastically higher amounts and where we could get some drastically lower amounts. But I think because you're on the South Carolina side of the river, you're in a pretty good spot to see a good snow. I think 3 inches is probably the magic number in Beach Island. Christopher Corbett, great question here. I have heard rumors. Does anybody know that Bananarama song, I Have Heard a Rumor? That's a great track, by the way. And Bananarama, a great band. But I've heard a rumor is kind of like the story of this entire month with weather because, some things are circulating. Model runs are circulating. It's hard to kind of find out what the forecast is. Christopher Corbett, thank you for this thank you for this question. He said, I've heard rumors that Martinez Evans can have up to 10 inches. I think that's extremely unlikely. I think, at the most in Evans and Martinez, I think 5 inches is possible in those directions. I really do. That's if everything goes right. That's if we get that south trend. So divide that 10 inches into 2, and I think we're spot on. But 5 inches, 10 inches down here, it's going to seem all the same to us, I think. It's going to be a rare event. So thanks for your comment, Christopher. Let's see. This is from Philip Russell Wall. Philip, thank you so much for your question. I like this one because we can really get a deeper dive going into this. So Philip asked, why is Augusta and I-20 the cutoff line for the higher accumulation? Well, within this upper level low, right, you've got different quadrants of it. And think of it like a tropical system. East side is the least side, and so is the north. Those quadrants of low pressure systems usually are the most active zones. And the west side is the best side to be on because you're not getting as much impacts. Now, here's why. Because within the positioning of the low, the dry air is on the west side of this low pressure system, right? The dry air is going to try to cut into some of those snowfall totals on the western edge. So where you see we're oriented within this storm, which I'm going to show you that here. Let's get you the regional Futurecast look. It all just depends on our placement within the low pressure system. So watch this. So we're on the north side of that stationary front. So on top of the fact that areas north of I-20 are going to get snow first, they're also going to get it for the longest period of time because they're in the best positioning with respect to that low pressure. So you see that there. So notice how long north of I-20 and the South Carolina side are in the snow band. They're in it the longest time. On the western edge of this, you've got dry air cutting into the system. On the south side of it, you've also got dry air cutting into the system. And that's where the dry slots are going to try to come into play. But on the north and east side, very similar like a hurricane or a tropical storm, those are the two quadrants that you want to be on. And right now, the north side of the storm is us here in the CSRA north of I-20, and on the South Carolina side of the river. So hopefully that answers your question, Philip, because we are expecting a pretty decent impact from this in those exact 2 locations. And thank you all for asking questions tonight. It means a lot, and we appreciate your trust, and hopefully you get what you need for this forecast. We're going to show the road conditions again one last time, too, so you can get a better idea of what's shaking out and what's happening. Judy in Sally, South Carolina. Judy, thank you so much for asking. Sally is one of those spots that we could easily see a little bit more than 4 to 5 inches. It is. You're right in the strike zone, if you will, for a high total. Actually, let's take a deeper dive into that. We'll go ahead and zoom in to these locations. And we'll get some data points here. So this is around Wagner, Springfield, and Orangeburg County, Denmark, Blackville, and Williston. Look at that. I mean, you're approaching that 5-inch territory in those areas. You go further down the road, look at that in Columbia. We've got it grayed out because it's out of our area, but 6.21 there in Columbia. That's our in-house model. So if you're in Wagner, Sally, all those places, could get a pretty big snow around there. Now let's look at areas towards Edgefield County and McCormick County, because these are other areas that are going to be in the big zones. Let's see. We'll go to Lincolnton here. Look at that. I mean, those are some high totals right there. I mean, 4 to 5 inches in our northernmost counties. And again, because you're in the north and east quadrant of the storm for the longest period of time, that's where we could see some of that. So hopefully you could see the snow that you're dreaming of, and hopefully you'll stay off the roads and make sure to just exercise caution with that. And here's some of those road impacts again. We'll go ahead and show you those. Starting tomorrow morning, the roads will try to go downhill, but they really don't go downhill until Saturday afternoon, and it'll continue through Sunday morning. That looks to be the worst time frame for travel. Sunday afternoon, some slight improvement, and then whatever's left refreezes Sunday night through Monday morning when more hazardous travel is possible in the form of black ice especially. Brian Weathersby, how about close to Bush Field? I think anywhere from about I'd say 3 inches is the magic number at Bush Field potentially. Matthew, that's part of this snow ratio. The models sometimes do not do the best job in showing you just how much could collect. And again, worst case scenario, we're talking 5-6 inches in some spots. But the snow ratio now starting to get accounted for in some of that model data. But I do think it's going to be a big snow. I do think that in a lot of spots. But usually the snow ratio, once we get into the higher resolution data, which we've had over the past couple of days, it's accounting more for that. The Euro and the GFS, not so much. Ursula, yep, you're excited about Lincoln County. I am as well. I'm excited to see kind of what comes out of it. Can you zoom in on the Martinez area? Yep, and we can give you some of those more snow totals going region by region here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that front. So here we go. All right, so for the Metro, I mean, look at some of these totals, right? This is what we're talking about with banding. You see Thompson right at about 4.78 in this particular model run, and Augusta at 3.23. Just a little drive down the road can make an inch or two of a difference. And so let's go ahead and show you some of these totals here. This is North Augusta, going down to Beach Island here. Got Fort Gordon, got Grovetown, and again, there's Beach Island. Look at that. I mean, there's your 3 to 4 inch mark. And again, if I go down just a hair to the south into the McBean area, northern Burke, southern Richmond County, into Gracewood, Blythe, Hepzibah, these areas, you can see the banding phenomenon that we're talking about, which, again, puts you at about an inch difference. And we all know that's a quick drive up. And that's a quick drive up Jimmy Dias or, the Parkway and Mike Paget, all those roads. And just a quick drive can make about an inch to a 2-inch difference in some spots. So that's why we say, don't necessarily get caught up in we're going to get 5 inches guaranteed. But that's a general range. I think 2 to 4 is where most of us will fall, and 2 to 4 is what most of us will get. But either way, you're seeing some really impressive totals that will be coming in across the CSRA here. And so that really much does the forecast. Again, the bottom line is we are going to see roads starting to go downhill starting tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon. And one last look at the futurecast real quick, and then we're going to show you some wind chills, and then we will wrap things up for tonight. Here's tomorrow morning around sunrise. I think that's when we really start to see this piling up. Here we go, 7, 8 o'clock, especially along Highway 378. And then 8 to 9 o'clock in the Augusta Metro, and then those accumulations really starting to begin closer to 10 to noon, overspreading us all afternoon, all evening tomorrow, and a couple heavier bands will be possible. There's a heavy band. There's a heavy band. There's a heavy band. You get the gist of it. And then here's some lighter bands, right? And this is not exactly where everything's going to be. This is a simulation, right? So take that for what you will. Some heavier bands you see there. I mean, look at that one. This band is impressive. See the darker blues. Anything in the darker blue versus lighter blue. This is what we're talking about, right? You're going to see snow off and on through the day. Sometimes it'll be heavy. Sometimes it'll be lighter. And then by midnight, all of it's gone. And then look at what we have to deal with Sunday morning and Monday morning. Not feeling that great. I want to show you the rolling wind chills, though, because this will show you kind of what we're expecting into tomorrow afternoon. This is at about 4 in the afternoon. Look at this. So while you're playing in the snow perhaps and enjoying, that's what it's going to feel like. 13 to 20 degrees. So if you're taking the kids out to play in the snow and they're having fun and enjoying it, that's awesome. Just make sure that they are bundled up, taking breaks back in the heat, because this type of cold, again, it really starts to get to you pretty fast if you have prolonged exposure to it. We're not used to anything like this for a long period of time. And this is at about, give or take, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. This is at 9 o'clock Saturday night. So 9 o'clock tomorrow night, it's going to feel like, 9 to 10 degrees. 9 to 10 is what it's going to feel like out there. And then we get to Sunday morning, and just brutal. Some of those wind chills around 2 to 3 degrees. So make sure to take those precautions against the cold air. Make sure you're not trying to drive too awful much. Just be careful, extra careful if you have to, because I think this is going to be a weekend where we just get snowed in, relaxing, and some of this is going to melt off on Sunday afternoon. Tracy Bush, that's a funny comment. She says, Byron doesn't believe that we will see snow. I get it. It's cautious optimism, right? The believe it when we see it mentality is alive and well. I am very confident, of course, that that's happening. I've just seen too much data for that to not be the case. We're going to get it tomorrow. It's just a matter of how much in your area. And then we know the impacts and we know the scale of those impacts. It's just a matter of the amounts. Could the amounts tweak the impacts slightly? Right now, everything's pretty narrowed in, and we've got a good grip of that forecast. So, again, thank you guys for joining us tonight for another edition of Weather Aware Live. Thank you for your trust, and hopefully you got what you needed just then in that Q&A. As we go through the next couple of days, we'll continue to live stream coverage here on Fox 54 for tomorrow's snow. You can find us here on Weather Aware Live streaming to get that latest information on what's happening. We'll be tracking the snow live. We won't be forecasting it anymore. We will just be tracking it in real time. Make sure to send us your photo and your video to enews@wfxg.com. We would love to share that on our newscast and, of course, here on social media as well. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thanks for your questions. We'll continue to look at those through this evening, and we'll post this video if you're just watching and you're thinking, oh, man, I missed out. We will post that video on Facebook or on WFXG.com, and you can find that on the homepage as well. Have a good night. Stay safe and enjoy that snow. We'll see you tomorrow morning for more live coverage and tonight on Fox 54 News at 10 and 11.